Today we're going to build this nice little oak case to store these little essential oil bottles. Well, welcome to another Memphis Monday. Today we're going to be building, it's Memphis Monday 100. Can you believe it? 100 Memphis Mondays. But anyway, today we're going to be building this nice little oak box to store essential oils in. It's got a little lockable clasp on the side. It's got spline joinery, fancy hinge. But anyway, we're not going to get anything done unless we do what? That's right. We need to turn to and get to work. Here are the samples of the essential oil bottles that I'll be making a case for. I've been practicing drilling holes. There's another idea here. Let me show you what I've finally decided on. Since I've got two different size bottles, I got two different size holes. The big one will go in there like that, and then the smaller bottle, it's in the smaller hole, and I also have a spacer underneath it so that the bottle tops will come out the same height, so that the top of the case, when it closes down, it'll be right down on top of those bottles so they can't come out. There'll be a total of 100 slots in this board. They'll come out looking just about like that all over this board. The holes will be about 50 small holes and 50 big holes, but they'll all be on the same grid. But in order to drill these holes and so they're neat, I'm putting a backer board on this thing so that I'll be able to drill the holes on my drill press and have an automatic backer board on the piece. Then I'll drill, then I'll just cut the whole thing out after the holes are drilled. Here I'm just putting this pattern of holes into this bigger board, and then I'll break the board down, and these holes will be going all the way through. Got the holes all done. Now the scam is this piece of plywood has another piece of plywood underneath as a backer plate that I put brads in the corner. And the notion is I'm now going to cut this matrix out on the table saw. So let's give that a try. Well, there's our grid, and I got a couple of bottles set up in there. Now I'm working on the box. Here's the stock for the box. What I got to do now is put rabbets that'll receive the top and bottom all around this inside edge right here. Here's a here's a scam on the storage system here. I got two different bottles here. This is 5 milliliters, and this is 15 milliliters, and they're two different heights. So I've rigged up a system here. This little rack here has these spacers that lift the thing off the bottom, and then these little cleats down here will be used to hold the smaller bottle up so that now they're both the same height. These spacers go in here like this. Okay, now the big ones go down in the deep holes, and the small one goes there. The top will keep the bottles from coming out if the thing gets turned sideways. Okay, I took the rack out of there now. I'm going to glue the top in. I'm not going to use any mechanical fasteners on this. I made it super tight, and I'm just going to glue it in and put a couple of weights on it. Well, we've got a few minutes while this dries, so let me show you the scam on the next thing we're going to do. Splines. We're going to put a spline here at the top and a spline down here at the bottom, which is just a slot through there. Put the box at 45 degrees on the saw, cut a slot through there, and then we'll be putting a contrasting wood in there. Here I'm going to be using this Eastern aromatic cedar, because here's what our little spline looks like. This is our practice piece after it's sanded down. Okay, over here I'm building a new jig, because the jig I was using is a jig for making splines in picture frames, but it'd probably work, but I'd be giving you a bad gouge. So there's our new spline cutting jig. Let's get our box and cut those splines and quit goofing off. I'll put 2 splines in each corner. One will be for the lid, and the other for the box. I've already tested it on our practice box, so it ought to work. Putting the splines in, like I showed you before, all I'll do is put a little glue on them and slide them in these slots. Now you see, this one is a little bit too big. Now I could drive it in, but if you do that, you're taking a chance in oak. Whenever you're working with oak, it splits real bad. So I got my sander over here. And I only had to take off probably, a 30-second. So they should fit in there. Some people say loose, but I don't know how much. I don't know how much this cedar this cedar swells. Okay, let me get the rest of these in here, and we'll be on a roll. So this is what it looks like when we get all the splines in there. Glue's still wet, as you can see. We'll give that glue some time to dry, and then we'll saw those off and sand them down. Using a dovetail saw to cut these off. Well, there's our splines. See, they turned out real good. Okay, next thing, I'm going to round over this edge just a little bit on the router before we split the case. Let's open this thing up and see how we did. It looks perfect. Well, it looks okay. Now we have to see if our scheme works. This goes here. This goes here. Now, see, the problem is I got to make sure that my concern is that these are going to hit the top over here, and the lid won't close. So let's see. That's a problem. Aha! Fits. It must not be a frog here. Oh man, that's a tight fit. I don't know what color they want their box, so I'm just going to try to be logical, and since it's an oak box, I'm going to stain it oak. Well, the finishes sort of began the drying process. I'm putting the hinges on now. Let me get this screw in, and I'll show you these hinges. Well, here's our hinges. I kind of like them because they're decorative, but they're also very heavy duty. And this is always an angst moment because I got to figure out if the hinges have thrown the case out of alignment. Not too bad, it has some. You remember a few minutes ago we talked about putting these little slats in here to make this thing adjustable. Well, you may have thought that was a bad idea, and you may do your heart good to know that I've come around to your way of thinking. And I'm going to put a solid board in here. And then the whole rack inside will be held by a single screw. Last few minutes I've been fooling around putting this friction lid support in. The deal is it only fit in one way because the inside of the box is so tight. So I had to try 2 or 3 different iterations, but now it works. What I'm doing now is putting the handle on. This handle will be for both carrying the box if you need to, and also opening. I'm going to have a couple of latches to hold it closed. And so there's the handle. It's I think it's about on the limit for being too fancy, but I think it'll work. Let's put the latches on it. What I'm doing here is installing these lockable draw catches. They may seem a little inappropriate on a piece like this, but I like them. They really lock the box down good. And this thing may not always be a essential oil box. A little bit of polyurethane I think will be done. Of course, over the next few days I'll continue to add polyurethane. Well, there's our little box. Got these lockable clasps on the side, fancy handle with a friction brace back in the back, and it will store 2 different size bottles, the small bottles and the big bottles. Well, that'll do it for another Memphis Monday. Our nice little oak storage box to store the little bottles of essential oil. I didn't know what essential oil was until they asked me to build this. But anyway, I think we got some good takeaways out of it, and so I'd like for you to comment and like and favorite and tweet and Facebook and whatever else you do on the internet. But most important, much more important than all that stuff, make sure you're back here next week for another exciting Memphis Monday. Thanks for playing along.